When a man encounters someone whose dignity is deeply rooted, he is confronted with a subtle force that transcends mere appearance or social position. Dignity, in its truest form, is quiet, almost imperceptible to those who only measure value by power, wealth, or influence. Yet, to the perceptive observer, it is immediately noticeable because it radiates from a place of self-awareness and internal harmony. It is not the kind of strength that shouts or demands attention, but rather one that holds space without fear, without compromise, and without the need for validation. The man begins to sense that he is in the presence of someone who has cultivated a profound connection with their own essence. Someone who understands their worth not through external approval, but through an unshakable internal certainty. This realization is both disarming and inspiring because it reveals a type of strength that cannot be coerced, challenged, or diminished by external circumstances. Dignity, in this sense, is a quiet proclamation of inner stability, and it invites the observer to reflect on their own capacity for composure, resilience, and authenticity. As he continues to observe, he notices the way this inner strength influences behavior. The person moves, speaks, and reacts with intentionality, each gesture underlined by a sense of coherence between thought, feeling, and action. There is no need for posturing or performance. Everything that is said and done aligns with principles and values that are deeply held. For the man witnessing this, it creates a subtle psychological tension. On one hand, there is admiration, a recognition that such alignment between internal truth and external behavior is rare and valuable. On the other hand, there is a reflective discomfort, an acknowledgement of the ways in which he may have allowed external pressures, expectations, or fears to shape his own behavior. The presence of dignity acts as a mirror, revealing the inconsistencies between self-perception and reality, and urging the observer to contemplate the possibility of cultivating a similar steadiness in his own life. It is not a critique or a judgment, but a gentle confrontation with the idea that true influence and power arise from internal coherence rather than outward aggression or manipulation. Beyond mere observation, the man begins to sense a deeper energy emanating from the dignified individual. It is a kind of silent magnetism that commands attention without demanding it. Others naturally defer, listen more intently, or feel drawn to the composure on display, not because of fear or obligation, but because the presence conveys something rare and authentic. For the observer, this is revelatory. He realizes that dignity is a form of strength that surpasses conventional measures of dominance or authority. It challenges him to reconsider the ways he seeks influence, recognition, or respect in the world. In witnessing dignity, he sees a model of integrity and resilience that cannot be replicated through superficial means. The encounter invites him to explore his own inner landscape, to cultivate self-respect, to confront insecurities, and to develop the courage to remain authentic even in the face of social pressure or adversity. In this recognition, there is an awakening. The man understands that true power is not about imposing oneself on others or controlling outcomes, but about mastering oneself, preserving the integrity of one's values, and acting from a place of conscious awareness. Dignity becomes a lens through which he measures not only others but also himself, prompting reflection on the gaps between intention and action, fear and courage, and appearance and essence. It is a reminder that the most compelling strength is often invisible, residing in the quiet steadiness of character, the ability to remain centered amid chaos, and the courage to uphold one's principles regardless of circumstance. In this moment, the observer is transformed, not through instruction or persuasion, but through the silent demonstration of inner strength that commands recognition, respect, and introspection. When a man perceives the dignity of another, his first instinct is often one of respect. but it is a respect tinged with subtle apprehension. Dignity does not announce itself with loud declarations or dramatic gestures. Instead, it exists quietly, firmly rooted in self-awareness and inner balance. The observer senses immediately that this person's worth and presence are not contingent on external validation, social favor, or approval. This realization generates admiration, for the individual's strength arises from their ability to maintain composure and authenticity regardless of circumstance. Yet, alongside this respect comes a quiet unease. The apprehension is not fear of harm, but a recognition of boundaries that cannot be crossed, principles that cannot be manipulated, and a steadfastness that resists coercion. The dignified presence challenges the observer to confront his own assumptions about power, influence, and control. In witnessing someone whose self-possession is unshakable, he may feel the subtle sting of inadequacy or the realization that superficial methods of gaining attention or asserting authority will not succeed here. This dynamic creates a fascinating psychological tension, one in which admiration and unease coexist, prompting reflection on the observer's own inner structure and the ways in which his self-worth is dependent on external factors. As he continues to engage with the presence of dignity, the observer begins to notice its subtle effects on social interaction. There is a magnetic quality in the quiet confidence displayed, a natural command of attention that does not demand it. Others instinctively respond with deference or careful attention, drawn by the aura of integrity rather than compelled by force. The man realizes that influence can exist without aggression, that leadership does not require domination, and that true authority is perceived rather than enforced. This recognition can provoke an internal dialogue. Why have I relied on appearances, force, or persuasion to assert myself when such strength exists quietly, effortlessly, and authentically? He begins to confront the ways in which his ego seeks control, often through superficial means, and feels challenged to consider alternative pathways to respect, influence, and meaningful connection. In witnessing dignity, he is forced to reflect on his own insecurities, limitations, and habits of seeking approval, and he may feel both admiration and discomfort as these realizations come to light. Beyond self-reflection, the presence of dignity creates a space in which the observer is invited to examine deeper human dynamics. The apprehension he experiences is not merely personal, it is relational. Dignity sets unspoken standards, showing that certain behaviors, manipulations, or superficial charms will not succeed. The observer perceives that influence in this context is earned through alignment between one's values and actions, rather than through coercion, persuasion, or performance. This insight is transformative because it demonstrates that respect is not given automatically, but is a response to authenticity and ethical consistency. It challenges the observer to cultivate his own internal coherence, to act from principle rather than fear or desire for recognition, and to measure his actions against the quiet power he witnesses. In doing so, he begins to understand that apprehension is a natural companion to respect, signaling the encounter with a strength that is self-contained, principled, and deeply human. Ultimately, the experience leaves a lasting impression on the observer. He recognizes that dignity has a dual effect. It commands admiration while simultaneously revealing the limitations of external validation and superficial influence. The apprehension he feels is a subtle invitation to introspection, prompting him to examine the alignment of his own values, intentions, and behavior. In encountering someone whose dignity is unwavering, he witnesses a model of strength that is profoundly influential precisely because it does not seek to dominate or impress. Respect coupled with apprehension becomes a mirror, reflecting both what is admirable in another and what is possible within himself, highlighting the transformative potential of observing authentic, principled presence. When a man observes someone whose dignity is evident, he often experiences a sudden and subtle awareness of his own self-deception. The presence of such unwavering integrity exposes the masks that most individuals wear daily, pretenses designed to impress, appease, or manipulate. These masks may take the form of exaggerated confidence, carefully crafted behaviors, or silent compromises made to avoid conflict or gain approval. The dignified individual, however, requires none of these protections. Their worth is internally validated, grounded in self-awareness and moral coherence. For the observer, this realization can be both unsettling and enlightening. He begins to notice the discrepancies between his outward presentation and his inner truth, recognizing how often he has allowed fear, desire, or social expectation to shape his actions. The encounter becomes a mirror reflecting the subtle ways he has deceived himself, demonstrating that authenticity is not merely an ideal, but a form of power and resilience that transforms perception and interaction. In this presence, self-deception loses its potency because the dignified individual cannot be misled, swayed, or superficially impressed, revealing the deep psychological cost of living inauthentically. As the observation continues, the man becomes increasingly aware of the intricate patterns of behavior that have perpetuated self-deception in his own life. He notices moments when he compromised personal values for the sake of acceptance or avoided confronting uncomfortable truths about himself. The dignity before him illuminates the contrast, highlighting how alignment between internal principles and external action fosters a kind of quiet authority that cannot be imposed or imitated. This awareness is not accusatory. Rather, it inspires reflection and invites transformation. He begins to consider the subtle ways in which ego, habit, and societal expectation have led him to distort his own reality. By recognizing these patterns, he sees the opportunity to reclaim integrity, to act with intentionality, and to develop a presence that is both genuine and influential. The dignified example serves as a psychological guide, illustrating that true strength and respect emerge from clarity, honesty, and the courage to face oneself without illusion. Moreover, witnessing this dignity evokes a deep curiosity about the nature of authenticity. The man realizes that self-deception is often unconscious, woven into thought, speech, and action in ways that are easy to overlook. The person before him demonstrates that awareness and self-honesty are cultivated through introspection, experience, and conscious effort, creating a presence that is effortless yet commanding. The observer feels both admiration and a subtle challenge. Can he embrace the courage required to confront his own illusions, or will he continue to rely on superficial adaptations to navigate life? The experience subtly reshapes his understanding of human interaction, teaching that influence, respect, and meaningful connection depend far more on internal coherence than on outward performance. In this way, dignity becomes a catalyst for psychological insight and personal growth, encouraging the observer to question long-held assumptions about self, others, and the dynamics of respect. Ultimately, the encounter leaves the man with a transformative recognition. He understands that self-deception is a barrier to authentic engagement and true influence, and that observing dignity is both a mirror and a guide. It highlights the contrast between superficial adaptation and principled presence, prompting reflection, self-examination, and the possibility of inner alignment. In this awareness, he sees that genuine authority arises not from manipulation, approval-seeking, or performance, but from living in congruence with one's values, embracing self-honesty, and cultivating a presence that is unwavering, principled, and quietly magnetic. The realization lingers, inviting him to transform not by instruction, but through the subtle illuminating power of witnessed authenticity. When a man witnesses the dignity of another, he encounters more than mere presence. He confronts a subtle challenge to his ego and the patterns of social conditioning that have shaped his behavior. The ego often seeks validation, dominance, or approval through external means, status, influence, or manipulation. Yet, in the presence of someone whose dignity is self-contained and unwavering, these strategies lose their effectiveness. The dignified individual does not yield to pressure, does not seek to impress, and does not compromise core values for acceptance. This realization creates a moment of psychological tension. The observer feels both admiration and a quiet destabilization as he recognizes that conventional forms of asserting power or influence hold little weight here. The dignity before him operates according to an internal code that transcends social expectation, demonstrating that authentic strength is rooted in self-mastery, integrity, and alignment between inner values and outward action. In witnessing this, he is prompted to examine his own reliance on external validation, social comparison, and habitual patterns of ego-driven behavior. As he reflects, the man becomes aware of the ways in which social conditioning has subtly influenced his perceptions and reactions. From childhood, society teaches behaviors designed to conform, compete, or assert dominance, often at the expense of authenticity. Observing dignity reveals the limitations of these learned patterns. The individual before him embodies a freedom from conformity, an autonomy that is psychologically and morally resilient. This contrast awakens an introspective tension. Admiration for the strength displayed, coupled with an acknowledgement of the constraints that have shaped his own choices. The encounter encourages him to question whether his attempts at influence or recognition are authentic or simply conditioned responses. It becomes clear that dignity is not performed for reward or status, but emerges naturally from alignment with one's own principles, demonstrating a model of internal authority that the ego cannot manipulate or overpower. The presence of dignity also invites consideration of relational dynamics. The observer senses that he cannot control, coerce, or undermine someone whose strength comes from integrity and self-possession. This challenges his habitual reliance on external measures of influence and forces him to confront aspects of himself he may have ignored: insecurities, competitiveness, or dependence on social approval. The experience reveals that true respect and influence are not earned through fear, charm, or persuasion, but through the quiet consistency of principled behavior. The man realizes that social conditioning can limit his capacity for authenticity, and that encountering dignity highlights the possibility of transcending these limitations through conscious self-reflection, self-discipline, and alignment with personal values. Ultimately, this encounter is transformative because it illuminates a pathway toward authentic self-possession. The man perceives that the ego's need for external validation is a subtle barrier to true strength and connection. Dignity operates as a silent teacher, showing that authority, influence, and respect are most enduring when they arise from internal coherence rather than external performance. The confrontation with such self-contained strength challenges him to reconsider the nature of power, the influence of social conditioning, and the potential for cultivating inner autonomy. In witnessing someone whose dignity is unwavering, he experiences not judgment or instruction, but the profound invitation to examine his own patterns, confront ego-driven impulses, and embrace the freedom that comes from living in alignment with one's deepest values, principles, and self-awareness.